Thank you, Sairam. You've really hosted a phenomenal panel with such diverse backgrounds. Shobna, thank you for sharing really insightful views on nanoparticles, quantum computing, applied materials, really the insights of a scientist's life. Right? And Surbhi, your views on the research you're doing around machine learning and the options available to work in that direction. I think it's absolutely, a big learning for the audience here. And Lakshmi, your experiences as a researcher in R&D, the innovation, the problem solving, the software quality architect's role, and with focus on users, right? And Shobna, I must add, I've spent 25 years and 18 in the IT industry, and 18 years went in traveling 4 days a week. And now life came to a standstill, we're working out of a room, right? It really rings a bell. But then there's so much more that we can do. And so thank you for the really interesting views and advice to the audience, because everybody is really looking at what are the options of leadership roles that the teams can take on, and what are the options available. So the insights that you all shared were really nice, and thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
If there's one thing we have learned over the course of the last year, it is that it's not enough to focus on continuity, right? Because continuity is essential for stability in times of disruption. But as the macro landscape gets more complex, it's unpredictable, and risky businesses have to be equipped to be able to weather any storm. So cyber resilience is a critical area of focus for organizations going forward. To give depth to the industry perspective on what cyber resilience is all about, I'd like to welcome Sheril Jose. Sheril Jose is the head of cybersecurity, network, and IT compliance at Emcure Pharmaceuticals.
Good evening to all of you. I wish you a very happy new year. My name is Sheril Jose. I'm working with Emcure Pharmaceuticals as a head cybersecurity and IT compliance. I have overall 20 years of experience in IT industry, specifically 5 years of experience in cybersecurity and compliance. Basically, my organization is into medicine manufacturing. I'm here to share some knowledge which I learned or which I gained from my industry about cybersecurity. If you're talking about cybersecurity, there are multiple domains in it, right? It is about the IT governance, the IT security governance. It is all about the network security, application security, endpoint security, cloud security, mobile security, all those areas we are covering into the cybersecurity, including the physical security of the organization. So if you are talking about the network security, this is the practice of securing the computer network from the external or internal hackers or external or internal malicious activities. So what we are trying to do is we are trying to secure the network devices. So there are many ways to do this. We will identify the inventories of all the network devices, which is part of the organization. Identify the vulnerabilities in it using a vulnerability assessment and penetration testing. Identify the gaps and mitigate it. Right? So also a frequent patching and firmware upgrade of the devices or the operating system upgrade of the devices. This is the way we try to achieve the network security. Also, we'll have to identify the different departments in the organization. Accordingly, we'll have to do a segmentation of your network. Segmentation nowadays, people are talking about the micro segmentation. Micro segmentation means we are segregating the network based on the device, right? We are reaching to the LAN card level of the computer, and we are enabling the restrictions. For example, if you're taking a server, the server is allowed to talk to a certain set of users or certain set of peer servers on a set of selected port. So where we are enabling the restrictions up to the NIC card level. So there are multiple tools enable us to do this. So, for example, the NSX from the VMware is one of the tools where we can achieve microsegmentation. In the network also, we have certain technologies where we enable, micro level packet management or micro level traffic management using SD-WAN. That's the latest technology we are using for the network. The traditional peer-to-peer network or the traditional WAN technologies are moving away. Point-to-point lease line or VPN is moving away, and which is replaced by SD-WAN, where if you're taking, as I told you, NSX as an example, NXS can be integrated with all this technology, the SD-WAN, and we can see end-to-end traffic from point A to point B, the traffic movement we can trace, and we can identify the consumption of the traffic. When we are talking about application security, it is, any hacker or any vulnerabilities in the system or any malicious activities based on a vulnerability or they try to identify the gaps in the system, and based on that gap, they try to get into your network and steal the data away, right? So application, when we are developing the application, in each stage, we'll have to ensure that the application is secure enough. There are tools, use the penetration testing or vulnerability assessment and identify the gap, mitigate it, and release the system for the production and for the users. So every stage of the application development, we'll have to do this a security assessment and fix the gap in the development stage itself. When we are coming to endpoint security is the security that's the most. We have wide range of products, right? For example, our desktops, laptops, servers, all these things comes under, especially the desktop, laptops, and mobile devices comes under endpoint, right? So endpoint continuous vulnerability assessment, so which is one of the term used nowadays. You keep on testing the vulnerabilities and keep on mitigating the gaps and ensuring the compliance of the system. So there are multiple tools where we can secure the networks. It's one of them is endpoint detection and response, that is EDR. When we are talking about endpoint security, we have the majority of the devices in your network will be covering the endpoint security. I mean to say your desktop, laptop, maybe the mobile devices like mobiles or your tablets, right? So all those devices are most vulnerable, and if you are not taking care of those devices, there is a possibility of security breach, and the hacker can come inside and take away your data, right? So the best way is to protect the system with the latest tools like EDR. Also do the vulnerability assessment and identify the gaps and fix the vulnerabilities, and ensure that all the systems are 100% compliant, right? So that way we can reduce the risk. So endpoint detection and response is something replacing the traditional antivirus solutions, where the product itself is intelligent enough to identify the traffic flow, any changes in the file system. This EDR will detect any kind of encryption or decryption happening in your file system or on the drives. Any type of traffic will be monitored appropriately, and the malicious traffic will be identified and blocked from the endpoints. Similarly, the vulnerability assessment will fix the gaps and the vulnerabilities in the system, so that hacker, when any hacker, what they do, they will identify all these gaps and they will try to find a way to get into the system. So if you're fixing the vulnerabilities and if you're fixing all the paths, or stopping all the, or closing all the paths where hacker can get into the system, that will ensure that your systems are compliant enough. When we are moving to the endpoint protection itself, there are multiple solutions. Also, there are multiple ways of protecting your data in secure. One is, the DLP solutions. The DLP solution also need appropriate data classification. We'll have to identify the data which is confidential, which is critical. Accordingly, we'll create the rules. So if we are talking about the VMware solution with Carbon Black and the NSX solution, NSX firewall or VRNA enabled with, so this will help us to identify the bad traffic. Actually, it will identify the good traffic and stop the bad traffic. So that's how those solutions will work. If I'm talking about the governance part, the governance always it will start with the policies, procedures, educating the users. The users should be aware, what kind of attacks are happening in the world or in the industry. Especially, I'm talking about pharma industry. There are multiple type of attacks, right? Our data is more critical, or there are intellectual properties like NDAs or ANDAs or patents, all the stuff. Especially the formulas of each drug is too critical for us, right? So what we do classify the data, we'll identify the data, then appropriately we'll prepare the security architecture for that, right? In the governance itself, one thing is very important is that it is the incident response and the life cycle of handling the security incidents, right? So appropriate governance, a proper way of incident handling procedure, post-incident activities like, once the incident happened, how to prevent that incident in future, what all the corrective and preventive action we'll take for preventing this type of attacks in the future. All these things are very important. Journaling of each incident and mitigation plan is most important, and user education is most important. And if you take human is most vulnerable than the machines. So the better way is educate the users properly, what they should do, what they should not do. Keep on educating them. So that itself will prevent a majority of the security breaches. As I told you, some types of defensive and mitigating factors. Obviously, the governance, where the security policies and procedures will come in picture. Building human defense, while educating the employees or educating the users. That also give us a better way of mitigation or defense in the security architecture. Use network behavior analysis, how the user is behaving, what kind of activities they are doing daily, what type of if any changes in that activity, immediately detect and keep the user informed and let them know that you are not supposed to do this type of activity in the network. So that is something, the network behavior and user behavior analysis. The perimeter defense, obviously, with the firewall or those DLP solutions or email security. So those solutions will help us in defining the perimeter security. Database activity monitoring is something where we are keeping all the data that has to be secure enough. Otherwise, your classified data will be taken by the hacker, and hacker will take the control of your organization. Right? So that is something important. The patching of all the systems is important. Then IPS and IDS, obviously, that is nowadays the next generation firewalls will come with the IPS and IDS. So configure the IPS and IPS rules appropriately. It will detect the bad traffic, and accordingly keep on fine tuning your IPS policies. So don't keep the same policy forever. You analyze the traffic and change the IPS policies. Then also you should have email filtering at the perimeter level, because most of the attacks are coming through the emails, right? It may be a phishing email or any kind of targeted attack. Also, the hackers will send the malicious files through the emails, and user will click on the file or click on the link, and it will enable the hacker to get the control of your system and take the data away. And another point is about you should have a dual factor authentication. Nowadays, the traditional way of authenticating is not sufficient for protecting the data. So dual factor authentication also will help us in preventing the attacks proactively. I would like to give you an awareness of the way the attacker initiate the attack. So how this happened, the attacker will keep on observing the network, will keep on identifying the key users in the system. Then they will identify what all the activities they are doing. They'll keep on monitoring your network and your users for longer duration. Then they will understand their behavior. Then they will prepare a schema of the attack, what way the user is more vulnerable, whether the social engineering is the best way to target this organization, or whether sending a USB with the malicious file is the best way, or using sending an SMS or email is the best way. So like that, they will they will define an attack schema. Right? Once the schema is identified, what the attacker will do, they will try to compromise the systems. They know your vulnerabilities, they know your weakness. Based on that, they will compromise your network and computer systems. Once the computer is compromised, they will inject the malware, or it can be a direct attack or it can be an indirect attack using some tools. So they will ensure that they got the control of your system and the network. Then start taking the data away. Once the data is there in the hacker's hand, what they will do, they will start threatening you, or in different way, right? It can be a WannaCry, or it can be a ransomware attack where they will ask for the ransoms, and they may start releasing your confidential data in the dark web slowly, and they will say that if you are not paying the appropriate ransom, we will release your entire data in the dark web. Right? This is the way they start taking your control, and they start controlling your organization. So like this, there are many to discuss, but within the limited time, I would like to give you more information about the cyber opportunities, especially for the women. Since all this crowd are the women, I would like to give more information on that. So there are majority of I could see that 11% of the cybersecurity professionals are women. Only 11%. Of 89% are men dominating. There are huge opportunities for women into the cybersecurity. In fact, from the top, that is CISO, to the security analyst, right? The CISO, security architect, security consultant, incident response team. So lot of opportunities. What you should do, take an appropriate certification, take an appropriate knowledge, do appropriate practice in the security, and keep doing practicing into the cybersecurity, gain maximum knowledge, and get into the cybersecurity. Women have more chances in cybersecurity because of your patience, because of your I think the women have more capabilities of analyzing the situations and define an appropriate security architecture based on the analysis, and get into that. So, and the opportunities are more. We will say that the sky is open for you. So I encourage you to come into the security portfolio more and more, and take an advantage of the knowledge, and take an advantage of your career growth. With this, I'm ending my discussion, and happy learning, and I wish you all best career in the cybersecurity. Thank you.